Hello, I am Dan Petrell, Senior Director of Strategic Communications with Maryland Realtors, and welcome to our State of Maryland Housing 2022 press conference. Today, we will be reviewing the results from our Housing Affordability Report. Joining us to discuss these results from this report and initiatives that we can take to help alleviate the housing affordability and availability concerns that Marylanders have are Craig Wolf, 2022 President, Maryland Realtors, Yolanda Muckle, 2022 President-elect, Maryland Realtors, Maryland Realtors CEO, Chuck Caskey, our Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, Bill Castelli, Joe Good from American Strategies, the firm that conducted the survey, is also here to help elucidate any questions that you may have from this survey. We are hoping to have Delegate Lisa Belcastro, District 11 from Baltimore County, joining us, but she is currently in work session. And if she comes in later, we will definitely welcome her to this event. Our guests will have a brief statement, and then if you have any questions, please raise your hand in the chat function. We will answer questions in the order that they are received. When it's your time to speak, I will turn on your mic, so to say, and then you may ask your question live. Please state which news organization you represent, and then the mic is yours. I will be placing in the chat function a link to the State of Maryland Housing infographic, which highlights some of the key takeaways from the survey. Thank you. And now please allow me to introduce to you our 2022 Maryland Realtors President, Craig Wolf. Craig.
Thank you, Dan. On behalf of Maryland Realtors, welcome to our press conference announcing the details from our second annual State of Maryland Housing Report. As the state's largest professional trade association with more than 28,000 Realtor members, housing affordability and availability are not only important to our members, but with the buyers and sellers they work with daily. In January of 2022, months of inventory, the homes available for sale was 0.6 months, about 2.5 weeks. A year earlier, it was 1.2 months. Historically, a balanced market is 6 months of inventory. Active inventory in January of 2022 stood at 5,480 units. Last year, it was 9,411 units. Overall, Marylanders are facing a shortage of more than 82,000 units. These people have to live somewhere. The question is where. These dramatic differences not only are a concern to us, but they're in the minds of Maryland voters as well. Through our website, opendoorsmaryland.org, and related consumer outreach, we've communicated with over 230,000 Marylanders and heard from thousands who shared their concerns regarding housing affordability and availability. These concerns are not limited to voters on concerned income levels or age groups. Housing opportunity issues affect Marylanders across the board. In our second annual survey conducted by the independent polling group American Strategies, we saw a dramatic jump, often by double digits, regarding these issues. We've invited American Strategies CEO Joe Good to provide further background on the results, should you have any questions. There is good news, however. With the help of the Maryland General Assembly, there are actions the state can take that could help ease this burden. I'm going to turn this over to Maryland Realtors President-elect Yolanda Muckle, who reviews some of the largest concerns raised by Maryland voters. Yolanda?
Thank you, Craig. Just as we did last year as a part of our Open Doors to Stronger Neighborhoods campaign, which examines ways to increase housing opportunity and housing equity for all Marylanders, we surveyed Maryland voters on a variety of housing-related issues. Concern among Marylanders has jumped by double digits on most issues related to supply and affordability in the last year. The level of concern is approaching West Coast concern on the state of housing. Some of these findings include 71% say the cost to buy a home in their part of Maryland is too high. This is a 14-point increase since 2020. Maryland voters under the age of 50 show the largest increase in concern over housing costs. 78% say the cost to buy a house is too high. This is a jump of 18 points from 2020. 71% of Maryland voters say the cost to rent an apartment in their part of Maryland is too high. This is a 10-point increase since 2020. 50% of Maryland voters say that housing availability is a big or a moderate problem, an increase of 14 points from 2020. 41% of Maryland voters now say there are too few homes available to buy. This is an 11-point jump from 2020. 52% of voters say that there is too little housing for people with moderate incomes in their part of Maryland. This is a 6-point increase in 2020. When looking at seniors, 59% say there's too little housing for older people who are looking to downsize or who have special needs, an 8-point increase. Finally, we asked Maryland voters about something many haven't heard of before, but has proven a viable solution in a few counties throughout the state. I'm referring to accessory dwelling units, commonly known as ADUs. An ADU is a self-contained residential unit located on the same lot as an existing single-family home. It could provide additional income for a homeowner. It could provide a space to care for a family member. An overwhelming majority of Maryland voters, 71%, approve of this idea. To learn more about this, I'd like to introduce Maryland Realtors CEO, Chuck Caskey, to further explain the idea of an ADU and how it can help to provide additional affordable housing in Maryland. Please welcome Chuck.
Thank you, Yolanda, and thanks again, Craig, for your input. First of all, let me say that there is no single panacea. There's no magic pill that we can all take. And this 82,000 unit, I'm not sure that was part of Craig's remarks or not, but we do face, Maryland faces a housing unit deficit of over 80,000 for the future growth needs, to accommodate future growth needs, I should say. ADUs, accessory dwelling units, should be part of what's in our toolbox. And we think, given the history of ADUs and experience that we have seen in other states, adopting a statewide ADU standard, it does have the potential to move the needle in significant ways to alleviate this shortage. A part of our survey was obviously, as you've heard, highlighting the struggles that many Marylanders face in finding housing options. And we're talking about buying or even renting. As we know, over 2/3 believe there's too little housing, and especially for younger people and people just trying to start out. ADUs are popular. Once, contained in the survey, once Maryland voters learn about ADUs, because a lot of people don't even really know what that means when we talk about accessory dwelling units, 76% support making it easier for homeowners to build these types of units on their property. And so we also do see it as a property rights issue as well as a land use issue. Unfortunately, there is a patchwork of local ordinances right now. In some local jurisdictions, one is unable to have an ADU at all on one's property. In others, there are very significant restrictions on the ability of a homeowner to put an ADU on the property, which makes it economically unfeasible. I guess what we're trying to say is that if current system had been working well, we wouldn't be in this enormous deficit. That's, I think, one of the main points we're trying to make today, because inevitably the opposition to any kind of statewide land use directive runs up against the argument that land use historically in Maryland is a local province and should remain so. And our response to that, quite frankly, is if it had been working so well all these years, we wouldn't have an over 80,000 unit deficit. That's our position at this point, that we really need to expand our options. We need to look at approaches to the housing deficit that we haven't tried, frankly, and to turn our backs and not even consider all the tools we have at our disposal is short-sighted, and we will never work our way out of the affordability and opportunity issues, because availability and affordability go hand in hand. As Greg said, 6 months supply is what's considered a balanced market. And here we are sitting on a 2-week supply. And so that's one of the reasons that housing prices continue to soar by double digits year over year. And with interest rates about to rise as soon as next week, potentially, from what I'm reading, affordability is going to be even more of an issue as interest rates, mortgage rates continue to up their upward trend. So for all those reasons, we support availability of ADUs in a consistent way across the state, because there are also business models where people can come in, developers can come in and help people create an ADU on their property. And if it's going to be a rental property, then the developer takes a cut of the rental income until the costs and a little bit of profit is realized, and then the unit gets turned over to the homeowner who owns it outright after that. And so there are a lot of business models out there that can help us and make a real impact on the housing stock, but developers will tell you they need some consistent and statewide uniform set of guidelines, and they can't go and try to learn every single county and city ordinances just to know how big they can be, where do they have to be located, et cetera, et cetera. There are challenges, but there are also opportunities here. So what we're asking for is a full hearing, and we're also asking for all levels of government to be open to new ideas, because the old way of doing things, we're pretty convinced, and the numbers show, that's why we did this. The follow-up numbers 2 years later, as you've already heard, the numbers continue to go up. Housing affordability, housing opportunity, and availability continue to be a challenge, and it's not going to get any better unless we employ some new thinking, creative thinking, and we believe that ADUs, it can be part of that process.
Thank you, Chuck. Are there any questions from our guests here assembled today? Please raise your hand and I'll be happy to unmute you for your question. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, this is Jack Bologna from the Baltimore Sun. I was just curious if there was any current legislation specifically about ADUs.
Yeah, Bill, you want to take that? Thanks for the question.
There are two bills. Yep. Thanks for the question. There are two bills, HB 1259, introduced by Delegate Belcastro, and Senate Bill 871, introduced by Senator Mary Washington. Both have had hearings as well.
Yeah. Do you have any expectations how they're going to do this session?
They were both had opposition from counties and municipalities who have concerns about their authority and being able to make their own local decisions about how development occurs. So I do think that, these bills have a stiff headwind in terms of being reported out of committees this year. But really, our hope is, as we did in the hearings, we had a very vigorous discussion in both the Senate and the House on these bills, lots of questions, and I would say lots of interest among legislators as well. I mean, when we take a look at all the options in terms of, how you're going to meet an 80,000 unit deficit, and we're certainly not the only state struggling with this, there aren't a lot of good options. I mean, and so, you can change local comprehensive plans, and that's decades in the future, any decisions you make there. Zoning, that takes years. I mean, ADUs can be a quick way to use existing infrastructure to meet some of this need. As Chuck said, it's not a silver bullet, but it would be a great option for so many counties and so many property owners.
And also Freddie Mac did a study recently, and Maryland ranked 11th in the size of our housing deficit out of the 50 states. So we are in the top tier of states for which, as this in the statements you heard, this is West Coast territory pretty much. I mean, we're not San Francisco or Seattle yet, but or even DC for that matter, I guess. But we're getting there. And the point is, we really don't want to reach a point where it gets just harder and harder to address, not easier as time goes on. So that's why, Jack, you're right. It's just going to pass this year, who knows? But we want to get the conversation started in earnest and get the people at the table who can address this. And again, be creative. And a lot of us like to say, if the reason you're doing something is because that's how you've always done it, that's not the right answer. If it hasn't, if it hasn't resulted or brought forth the results that you want, then you have to try something new. And that's all we're asking, is for the opportunity to present and seriously consider some new approaches to this, because the old way, the traditional way of doing things, is not working.
Thank you, Jack. Any other follow-up before I go to the next question? Guess he's good. Okay. Christian Jamie, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I've turned your mic on. It looks like you have a question.
Yes, I actually submitted my question in the Q&A box. So if you prefer to read it from there, that's perfectly fine.
Sure. Christian's question is, given that one's ability to purchase a home is tied to the ability to save enough for a down payment, and inflation for a variety of goods has been unfortunately robust, how much attention has been paid to the first-time homeowner assistance programs?
Yeah, I would just say not only the Department of Housing and Community Development has looked at that issue, but the legislature has as well. And unfortunately, this is another area where when we take a look at first-time home buyers, the statistics are not encouraging. We're at a 30-year low in terms of the percentage of first-time home buyers. So there are factors, inflation is certainly one of them. Housing supply that drives prices up is one of them. And I think, one of the great things, I think some of the practitioners on this call would admit, is that DHCD has tried very hard to keep up with that in terms of taking a look at their first-time homebuyer programs, different ways they can market it, different ways that they can tweak those programs to meet that need. And the legislature's looked at some of those issues as well.
Yeah, we have supported every opportunity we get to support additional funding for those first-time buyer programs. We get in line and support those. And so, yeah, that is a big piece of it. It requires some additional funding, though, and that, we're sending that message, and we support those initiatives.
Do we have any other questions? Jack, I see your hand is still raised, but I think your questions have been answered. Okay, there you go, hands down. There we go. Technology, we love it. Any other questions from our assembled group here? Well, in that case, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's press conference. There is an infographic that I have posted in the chat, along with the link to the affordability report. And please reach out to me. You all have my email should you have any other questions or want additional follow-up.
Christian did have another, he posted it also.
Oh,
and then, yeah.
Thank you. Christian's question, thank you for pointing that out, Chuck. What impact has the pandemic had on the construction of new homes amid this lack of units?
Where to start? Yolanda, I'm going to let you take that one because, she went out, coward. Oh, there you go. There's the green screen. Yeah, a lot, obviously. Yolanda has some experience with that firsthand. So you want to, from the practitioner's perspective, we can't hear you, but yeah. Still can't hear you.
There you go.
All right, technology, trying to unmute myself and put the correct background back up.
Don't worry
Sorry
about
about
the
that.
background.
Don't worry about the background, yeah.
Okay, so basically it has had a major impact with the pandemic. The cost of lumber, for one, has made it so unaffordable for a number of new construction projects. I've recently had someone who said they wanted all wood cabinets, for example, in their kitchen. And the builder said, well, we're doing laminate because that would be an extra $30,000 to you and your house price. So with the pandemic being the way it has been, it definitely has had a major impact where even, for example, I had a person who purchased a new construction home last year and it was $430,000. That same home is now $570,000 if they were to walk in there today to purchase it. So needless to say, being a first-time home buyer at $430,000 last year, they could afford it, but there's no way this year at $570,000. So that person who would have been a first-time home buyer is now looking at something else.
Yeah. And let me just say, and that is true. Labor shortage also is adding to the increased cost of new construction as well. But there's two other things. We're not going to build our way out of it. That one thing is that there just will not be enough new construction to get us to build. We can't build our way out of this with new construction. That's one of the things that we think is pretty clear. The second is, as far as resources and availability of land, that another reason ADUs makes a lot of sense is because it's by definition smart growth, and it's within areas that are already developed, that have infrastructure, that have water sewer capacity if necessary, that have roads, and we're not asking for exemptions from those adequate public facilities ordinances necessarily, or any of those things, so that local governments will still be able to manage the number of new residents based on things like the traffic studies. And we tried parking is another issue, but schools and those kinds of things, water sewer capacity, those kinds of things. So it's infill development for the most part, which is exactly where we want a lot of this development to occur. So for all that's an additional reason that ADUs, we think, is going to help move the needle on that.
And if I might add, Chuck, in the poll, we did ask about obstacles to home ownership, and you're correct. Saving for a down payment is right up there as number one. But this year, we also saw that high construction costs for new homes, the percentage you said that's a huge obstacle went up from 43 to 53%. So that's almost statistically even with the top obstacles, which is being able to save that down payment and having a job that pays enough to be able to afford a home. So the public is perceiving this as an issue as well.
Okay, Christian has another question here, and ask away. That's why we're here.
Yeah, don't apologize.
Yeah. But has the lack of single-family homes led to more purchases of townhomes and condominiums?
I can take that. It has. I have a number of clients who they start off thinking that they want a single family home. They would desire to have a single family home detached. And the prices are just so unaffordable that they have moved in the direction of townhomes. And if you even just look around as far as development, you see a lot more townhome communities going up than single family. Now, as far as condo, that's another issue. There's a lot of condos that are out there that are delinquent where they can't get financing, where it's not FHA approved or VA approved, for example. And then you have to have a non-warrantable loan putting down 20%, which is prohibitive, because if you're looking at, for example, a $200,000 condo, you have to have $40,000 in the bank to be able to do that. So that's another issue to be tackled, the delinquency problem with condos. But definitely townhomes, you will see quite a few of those being built.
Thank you, Yolanda.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? And please, if you have them, that's why we're here. So no worries there. Going once. All right. Well, thank you again. And thank you to to the media who have attended here today. If you have any other questions, you know how to reach me, Dan Petrell. You have my email. And following that, we will wish you well and have a great day. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.